In Hindu tradition, it is about action, but I want to just highlight on this word called yoga. Yoga means to yoke. It's a method of connection. It's how you connect. So some people were connecting, in Hindu tradition, you connect through your breath, you can connect through your actions, you can connect through your prayer, you can connect through thinking. There's a jnana yoga, which is you connect by thinking high thoughts. So there's lots of connection, but karma yoga is definitely about the connection that happens when you are in action. And I want to talk about connection because many people, not you of course, but I bet you know people who feel disconnected from themselves, from others, from certain groups of people, disconnected from their God. So in a Hindu tradition, if you felt disconnected, you would practice a yoga. And it doesn't necessarily mean like hatha yoga, although it could be that. But sometimes in the West, we think of yoga as just body postures or the way that we breathe. But yoga means yoke. So if I am disconnected, perhaps I'm being called to be of service, to go into sacred service, to function at a higher level so that I can know a higher level of connection. That is different than volunteering, because volunteering can sometimes just mean a job. I belonged to a church once where I was given a job. Everyone in the church had a job. You signed up, you had a job. Now, the church functioned very efficiently, but that job didn't make me feel connected. Because I really wasn't practicing sacred service, I was doing a job. So I need to make that distinction. Because volunteer, how many of you have noticed volunteer has sometimes really bad connotations? Like, can we have a volunteer? Can we just have a volunteer? For instance, when I was leaving the Grand Canyon, I don't know how the company that put this whole thing together figured this out, but 11 people wanted to go back to the South Rim, and there was only room on the plane for 10. So they kept asking for a volunteer to not go home that night. As it turns out, no one volunteered, so they assigned someone. But you can sort of understand what that sometimes can mean by volunteer, right? So sacred service is not about that, and it's not about having a job. Sacred service is about using your activity as an excuse to love, honor, and behold the divine in other people or things. So you use, like, sacred service is like, I am going to behold the goodness in others. That's sacred service. And I will use this activity as an excuse to do that. So let me give you an example. When I first became a minister, I sometimes felt disconnected from other ministers. So when we would get together at conferences or whatever we would get together in, I would often feel distant from them. And I think it's because a lot of us were burned out, and we'd get together and we brought our little burned out selves together. Can you imagine what that was like? Can you imagine crispy ministers in a room? You know, and they've been nice to everybody, and then all of a sudden, it was not nice. It was not pleasant. So I would distance myself and not even want to go there. Well, 19 years ago, a friend of mine, Mike Baker, and I decided to do something about that, and we decided to be in service to our fellow ministers, our peers. So we created, we funded, we invited, we hosted, and we made free a week-long conference that was about nurturing other ministers. So we nurtured them through music sometimes and through information, and we always held it at a gloriously wonderful, luxurious place. And we raised the money for it and provided it for free for about 25 other ministers. That has gone on for 19 years. Mike Baker has decided to do something else for a while, but now I do it with 3 other ministers, Edward Varhun, David Bruner, and Lisa Garcia. And what I've noticed is that in being of service to those people that I had felt distant from, I've become so close to them. And so I have bonded and become close to 25 other people 1 year at a time. And I leave so high because in seeing the goodness in them, I reveal the goodness in myself. That yoga, that practice lifts me in ways that I can't do just by thinking good thoughts about them. See, that's why it's called the yoga of action. I could pray for them and wish them well, but it's the action that made the difference. Now, we all have people that we feel distant from, and we all know it's their fault. Right? It's their fault. It's the family member or the political party or whatever. It's the separation that we see and we feel, and it's not our fault. A way to correct that is to move into sacred service, and really in that action we fill up. Now here's the deal. This is a safe place to practice. It took me 11 or 12 years for me to finally get that if I feel distance from my fellow ministers, I must be of service to them. And I think I could do that because I had been of service in other areas. A community becomes a safe place to practice, because what I'm asking for, if we're really going to go into this consciousness of sacred service, is it's incredibly intimate. It's incredibly revealing. To not just show up as an action, but to show up and do this namaste consciousness. Because sacred service is about the God in me, the light in me, the Christ in me, sees it in you. And the more I see it in you, the more I will feel it in me. Man, that's intimate. That's scary. How many of you your stomach starts to turn just the thought of it? And being that open. And that's why I think some people, they show up and they volunteer, but it's not sacred service, it's just here. Or we pack boxes, but we're all by ourselves. Or we do things, but we're not really showing up. We're not bringing our whole self to it. So I'm going to have a little experiment. Who's willing to experiment? Who's really brave and willing to experiment? Because you don't even know what I'm going to ask you to do yet. See, I'm not going to tell you what to do until you are willing. So those people willing to experiment, come up here. You don't even know what you're going to do. You just know you're going to do it. By the way, whether you come up here or not, you will not be excused from this experiment. Thank you, brave people. Thank you, wonderful, brave people. I love it. I love it. This is the herd mentality. You know what happened? What country was it in that a bunch of reindeer were huddling and they all got killed? Because they were.
You're making us really feel safe.
I know. I'm pushing all your buttons. I love pushing buttons. By the way, when we were supposed to come out of the Grand Canyon, the helicopter was supposed to arrive at 7:30 at 9 o'clock. And there's no communication down there. Somebody takes a boat and tries to find a place where the walkie-talkie would work. And finds out, okay, they'll be there at 10. 10 comes. Noon. 1. All of my abandonment issues are being triggered. And ideas of Survivor, the real thing, is starting to go on. It's like, there's only so much food. I can live off my fat. I'll be the survivor. I mean, it's like, it's just wild. It's wild. Okay, so thank you. So now that you're doing this, now we're going to practice something, because remember I was talking about sacred service as an opportunity to move into a consciousness of namaste. The God within me honors the God within you. There's a poem by Hafiz, who I love because he's so irreverent. And he says, because the one I love lives inside of you, I lean as close to you with my words as I can. And our wonderful Gina Salah wrote a song that kind of supported that and was a leap off of that. And this goes like this. Because the one I love lives inside of you. I lean as close to you as I can. Because the one I love, because you know what? You're here because there's something in you that longs to formally and outwardly love the God of your being. But the God of your being, where do you get it? How do you do it? Hug a tree? Well, yeah. But the God of your being is everywhere, so everywhere you can see the God of your being. And everywhere you can love that God. So you're going to sing that song in a minute, so let's practice. Because the one I love lives inside of you. I lean as close to you as I can. Now, over here. You are Namaste consciousness. And Eric O'Dell wrote a beautiful song a long time ago, and it went, let's try it again. Thank you, Joel, memory man. Okay. The God in me beholds the God in you. Namaste. The God in me beholds the God in you. Namaste. So both of those are songs that can help to anchor something within us that can be released when we acknowledge that one of the most pleasurable things on earth is the ability to share our light by seeing the light in someone else. Through love or through the honoring of the Christ or the light or the God in them. So what we're going to do is we're going to kind of do a little bit of a round, and it'll go like this. You're going to sing. Let's sing. Ready? Okay, ready? No, never mind. The one I love lives inside of you. I lean as close to you as I can. And then you over here, you go, Namaste. Try it again. Namaste. Now here's the deal. It's one thing to be up here and kind of look out and go, oh, isn't that nice? I want you to seek them out and love them. So you're going to, in a moment, disperse, and you're going to sing, Because the One I Love Lives Inside of You. And I want you to look at somebody. And probably look at the one that you would be least likely to look at. I know. How many of you, your stomachs are going, oh no, oh no. Yeah, it's tough. It is tough. It is tough to expose ourselves to others. But if we can't practice it here in a safe place, how the heck are we going to expose ourselves to others who seem really, really, really different? And then how do we break down that difference? How do we break down barriers? This is just a playground for discovering our own strength. So thank you for doing that. And then you guys, when you go for you're going to spread out, and the namaste, it's namaste. That's all you have to sing because it'll kind of complement their thing, is I want you, and when you're doing that, to really see the light of the person that you're singing to. You got what you're going to do? Now, this, we've talked about it, but before we do it, all of you in front, you decided you would play the game. I want you to move inside. And call forth that divine presence that lives inside of you. For you on this side, it might be all about love. I want you to really find the love that lives in you and wants to be expressed. Because if you came forward and you didn't even know what you were coming forward for, something in you knew that you wanted to share your love today. And for all of you on this side, we're going to give you a different name. I want you to find the Christ within, that spark of divinity. There's a spark in you. We are the light of the world. Don't hide it under a bushel. Find that spark, breathe into it. And with each breath, I want you to start to have it flame on so that when you are so filled with that light, all you can do is see that light in others. So play that game? Great. So now move out, find someone to sing to. I know, oh my goodness, it's getting scarier than ever. Oh. For those of you that are control freaks, you should have come up here. You would have had control about who's going to sing to who. Now, you're not going to sing to the same person every time. Every time, we're going to sing this through 3 times, and after you've sung one verse, you find someone else, all right? Ready, set. Because the one I love lives inside of you. I lean as close to you as I can. This side. Namaste. Move. Because the one I love lives inside of you. I lean as close to you as I can. Namaste. Move. Because the one I love lives inside of you. I lean as close to you as I can. Namaste. Thank you very much. And so as people are returning back to their seats, thank you. What was that like, Miss Rubikins?
I received that love back, and that was amazing.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you. And what was it like for you, McKenna?
I just felt so filled with God and joy, connection.
Thank you. And Miss Hawk Woman?
I was reminded that it was supposed to be the person that I felt least likely, but I didn't feel that at all. I just was drawn to certain people, and I also experienced so much love back.
Thank you. Thank you. Let's see. Let's take a... Yes? What was it like?
Healing.
Great. Who was sitting? Who stayed sitting? Okay. What was it like to sit there and watch this?
And to receive the namaste, it felt so nice to have that blessing.
Yeah, great. Who else was sitting?
I was sitting. It was awkward but sweet.
Yeah. Practice makes perfect. And that's what a community does. We offers an opportunity to practice, to get outside of ourselves. And later on, I'm going to talk about a joint prayer service that we're going to have with the AME Zion Church, Ebenezer AME Zion Church on 23rd Street. And Reverend John wants the the theme to be ICU because, our world's in trouble and we need ICU. But the other thing is, I see you. And the I stands for intimacy. Sacred service will call out intimacy. And isn't it great to be known and to be seen? And it's awkward. So thank you for saying that. If I look out at the world and I see defensiveness and guardedness, I can't change that. But I can ask myself to be less defensive and less guarded. Michael Jackson, if you want to change the world, look at the person in the mirror and change yourself. And sacred service allows us to do that. We fill up, and we give, and we receive. How many of you that were giving felt like you couldn't even, there was no end? How many of you felt that way? There's no end. You give, and it comes back. Through sacred service, you find out that God can always outgive you, and He'll outgive through you. And it's a theory until you prove it. And Ernest Holmes, the founder of this philosophy, said he didn't care what people knew. He cared what people proved. What do you prove? What are you living? What are you doing? So which leads me to just one thing, which is the talk title for today, which is pressed down, multiplied, and running over. As you give your sacred service, you will find that the good comes back to you, pressed down, multiplied, sacred, and running over. What do you want in your world? Give it away. What do you want in your world? Give it away. As a sacred act, not a job, not an obligation. And that sacredness comes back to you, multiplied, pressed down, and running over. And that's in every major world religion. You just can't get over it. Because that other part of karma yoga is karma, which is action, but it also means the law of cause and effect. And what you give out comes back, multiplied, pressed down, and running over. That's just the way it is. I would, if I wasn't finding it in every world religion, I'd say it was bogus, but I don't think it is. So that's the essence of what I wanted to talk about today. We are a safe place to practice sacred service. But do it somewhere. And notice how your life shifts. Now I want to talk about something else. Do you mind if I change the subject? I have to get permission. Yeah, thank you. Let's talk about something that most of you know about. And if you don't know about it, I'm so sorry. Obviously, we don't have your email address, or you don't open our emails. So if we don't have your right email address, you can fill out another connection card and put it on there. And then you could also take us off your spam list. Because something was mentioned last week, and I was told by some people that they were shocked because they didn't know, but we sent out an email to everyone, and that is that there's a very good likelihood we will be selling this property. We'll be selling it for the purpose of keeping our equity. Because, long story short, U.S. Bank gave us a 30-year amortization, but with a 10-year renewal, and they don't want to renew. They want out of the church business, which is okay. God bless them. And for me, what was interesting is that I got to go through everything about a month and a half before we started letting everybody else know. And it's good because as the spiritual leader, I get to go through my process. I have to go through my process so I can help other people through the process. And I had a process. I was angry. First, I was angry. And it pushed all my fair buttons. See, when you have an upset, the upset is in you. The thing is the thing. How I react is my thing. And my thing was, I have a fair button. I thought I'd healed that fair button. I hadn't healed that fair button, just like I hadn't healed my abandonment issues, obviously. We're going to be here forever. Fattest person wins. Anyway, the things that go through your mind when you're expecting a helicopter and it just doesn't show up for 5 hours. Anyway, then I was sad. And I was sad, not so much for what was, but for what, I was sad about what I wish had happened and didn't. Have you never noticed that? A lot of times I work with people who are divorced and they're so sad, and they really hated their marriage. But they're sad that it didn't turn out the way they wanted it to. Have you ever known people like that? Have you ever been there? So I was sad because it didn't, this whole plan didn't work out the way that I thought it should. So I was sad. I've been angry. I've been sad. Eventually, I felt a huge sense of relief. And I didn't have to buy lottery tickets anymore. Because a lot of prayer had been going into, I felt unliked and all sorts of weird stuff. But I felt relief, like, wow, this opens stuff up. And then, this is the weirdest part, I felt glee. Glee comes from being totally free of form. And it's heaven and it's bliss. It's very similar to the experience I've had a few times in my life. For instance, when I had a mass that was huge in my abdomen, and the doctors didn't know what it was, so we were going to have to do surgery. And when I finally came to terms with the fact that I might die, and that I was not this body, I was not this body. I was not my form. I was gleeful. And the mass disappeared. When we stop wanting things to be a certain way, ways open. And that is a bliss I hope you all come to know, whether you're through this process of this community or through some other process. Because on the other side of control is heaven. I think what triggered it was being on the Colorado, and our lead guide had just lost one of his best friends, who was also a guide. Did something really stupid, thinking he was strong enough to swim in the Colorado, even though all the guides said, don't swim in the Colorado. The currents and the eddies are way too much for any swimmer. And so he lost his friend. But then he said, nobody gets out alive. Which it wasn't making me feel good when the helicopter didn't show up. But what he meant was, we're all gonna leave this form. I am not this form. And the glee came when sitting on the Colorado and realizing that someone had dropped his form, but he lived on. I realized that this community is a community, and it's a spirit, and it's an intelligence, and it's a consciousness. And you know what? We may drop this form. We may. Now, things are shifting all the time. We may drop this form. But form follows function. And if we function like a spiritual community, we will attract to us another form that will be more suitable to that function. So I realized that perhaps the reason that I got healed instantaneously and the doctor said, get out of here because I don't believe this and I don't want to doubt myself, so you leave. Maybe that happened because I had found my eternal spirit and my body had to shift to recognize that. We are being called, I believe, I'm being called. I don't know about you. But I know I'm being called to recognize that there is a spirit that lives us. And man, that spirit can do amazing things. Already things are popping up because I was willing to consider that which was inconceivable. And things started to show up. When we're willing to consider the unconsiderable, considerable options emerge. I'm not sure how this will show up, but if I think I am my body, I limit my eternal spirit. If we think we are this location, we limit what God can do through us as a community. Ernest Holmes said, we really know what we know when things get tough. I don't want to move. But it might call me to clean out my drawers. And give away stuff I haven't looked at for 20 years. We may not want to consider new routes to our community, but you know what? We might go buy 3 Starbucks instead of only 2. We don't know. I'm in glee. It's hard to explain, but I am. Because I've discovered in myself that what I am is so much bigger than what you see. And all I can say is, if I didn't find this in me, I couldn't call it out in you, and maybe that's why I'm going through this, so I can call it out in each other. I don't know how it will end. But this may be, like sacred service is a means to discovering our divinity, so too may this be the means for us discovering the divinity within this community. I'm certainly finding it in myself. Let us pray. And because I am loved by the infinite, everlasting expression of intelligence, because I am loved by that, I am open to loving, and I love. And I don't need to be demonstrative or have it show a certain way. I don't need to be sentimental. I don't need to even be nice. I just need to love. I absolutely love everybody in this room and everybody that's not in this room. Because I realize that we are lights that we haven't even begun to shine yet. Oh my goodness, we've been little night lights on a wall. And we're being called to be spotlights in the world. Because the Christ in us is hot and wants to warm our world. Our world. And so I praise the God within every person in this room. I praise the God that is in the existence that we live in. I praise the God that calls us forward. I praise the God that has blessed our past. I praise the God that stands in each and every one of us and says, I am the light of the world. Oh, we sing about it. Let us live that now. Let us stand up and be what we are called to be. Let us be on the foundation of the living Spirit Almighty and know our eternal existence, and that we are not the form of our body. We are not limited by the conditions of this life. We are immensely powerful and unlimited in all of our potential. That's the truth of us. It's always been the truth of us. It will always be the truth of us, and we stand in that now. This prayer is my prayer, and for each and every one of you, if you want it to be your prayer, simply within your heart of hearts say, yes, yea, and amen. And then we can all say together, and so it is.